What's up, guys? This is Carter Karels with GigEm 247 here at the Swamp, and the road losing streak for Texas A&M is over. It is over. It is done. It is history. 1,065 days, 3 years, 10 straight games they lost on the road, and now it's over after a 33-20 win here over Florida. A huge first road win under head coach Mike Elko, and a huge win for Marcel Reed. Really the story of the game. Marcel Reed, redshirt freshman, didn't know who the starting quarterback would be today. Connor Wigman had the AC joint injury in his shoulder, throwing shoulder, had been practicing this week, had a setback on Thursday according to head coach Mike Elko, and then went through warm-ups, got a shot in his shoulder. Is he gonna start? He's lining up as the starter in warm-ups. Nope, last second it's Marcel Reed, and you know, awesome performance for that kid, really from the get-go. Had the 2nd and 1 that he turned into a 31-yard run, had a bunch of third down conversions early on. I think they started 3 of 4 on third down, went up 20-0 in the first half. And you know, the second half kind of took the air out of the ball, started to run the ball quite a bit. So, you know, the stat line wasn't crazy for him, but 11 of 17, had about 170 yards and a couple passing touchdowns, and then on the ground, about 80 rushing yards and a touchdown. So a really nice first game, and really a kind of performance that makes you wonder who the starting quarterback for this team will be going forward. I think if you ask people in the Aggie fan base right now, they tell you, no, this is the Wally Pipp situation, right? Where Wally Pipp, New York Yankee, takes a day off, and then all of a sudden, hey, a guy named Lou Gehrig comes into the game and is spectacular, and then Wally Pipp never starts a game for the New York Yankees again. Could that happen with Connor Wigman and Marcel Reed? I think Marcel played well enough to where, hey, you have to give this guy a look going forward. Connor Wigman certainly came in with a lot of hype, with a lot of expectations, but AC joint injuries, if we learned anything from Kyle Allen back in 2015, these aren't things that just go away after a week. This is something that could carry with him for multiple weeks. And you know, you got Bowling Green next week, so this could be a thing where, okay, Marcel, you know, let's see another start. Let's see another good one. And if he just keeps playing like this, you got to keep going with him. And, you know, it'd be one thing if this was, you know, McNeese State or some weak opponent and it was at home. But, you know, I know Florida's not a world beater, but it is an SEC team and it is a road game. And this is something that this team hasn't done in 3 years. So I think going forward, you got to keep going with Marcel Reed until he gives you a reason to not keep going with him. Will be interesting to see what A&M does, but you know, on top of his performance, the other big thing for this offense was their running game. The second straight game that they have rushed for over 300 yards on the ground. Another huge performance for Le'Veon Moss, got over 100 yards, got to 110 on the day, and you know, he is starting to look like one of those better backs that you'll find in the SEC. I think he's over 300 yards on the year through 3 games. So, you know, really impressive start for this kid. You know, we thought going into the year, could it be a committee approach? And then we thought, okay, well, Ruben Owens is out. Could it just be Moss leading the way and Daniels gets, you know, a good percent? No, it's been a lot of Moss. 18 carries a day, led the team, and certainly continued to look like by far the best back out of that group. We still saw a lot of Daniels and saw a lot of E.J. Smith, but this is a Le'Veon Moss backfield, and he was great once again. The other thing, though, I want to point out is just the offensive line's run blocking today. Yes, the running backs did a great job. You know, that 22-yard run from Le'Veon Moss, I think he broke 5 tackles by my count, but it was set up by a block from Trey Zune. And then you had Amari Daniels had an 18-yard run later that drive, that was set up by a block from the right tackle, Ruben Fothery. And so this O-line was really, especially once it started to rain pretty heavy here, really started to insert their dominance in this game. And, you know, you just got the sense that this was a game where until the second half, when A&M really started to have some issues in the secondary, they were dominating in almost every way. You look at that first half, and I think A&M had 43 plays, Florida had 12. A&M had the 99-yard drive that I was just talking about a second ago, where they had 15 plays and 14 of them were runs, and 97 of those yards came on running plays. Unbelievable. I mean, this was a team last year that couldn't get a yard when it needed to. Remember last year, 4th and 1, 3rd and 1? First of all, they refused to run the quarterback sneak. But second of all, when they did give it to the running back, he'd lose it. They wouldn't even get back to the line of scrimmage. They'd lose a yard in a lot of those situations. Well, now you're in this spot here where not only can they get a yard when they need to, but they're running the ball almost every dang play of the game, or every play on certain drives. And so what a difference a year makes. And you got to give the first-year O-line coach, Adam Cushing, a lot of credit. He's somebody that we singled out kind of in the offseason as somebody where, you know, comparing him to his predecessor, that could be where this team could take a real big step forward, and we've seen that. You know, just from a game standpoint, it was an ugly game. It wasn't like a perfect performance for A&M. You know, they had 13 penalties for 110 yards. A lot of personal fouls. You know, you think of the TJ Shanahan one that set up like a 2nd and 40 for them after Chase Basanis had a holding, and they ended up scoring on that drive because of a targeting penalty that gave them an automatic first down. But man, could have been costly. That was ugly. You know, the end was not great. They go up 33-7, and Florida really outplayed them last quarter and a half. And so, you know, certainly some things that you can clean up. Not something where you leave this and say, man, what a great, perfect game that A&M played. But to not play your best football and win by 13 on the road in the SEC, I take that as a big positive. You could also spin it as A&M came in with their backup quarterback who had no sort of preparation, right? Like, I mean, he didn't know he'd be the starter until today. And then you had 13 penalties, and yet you're winning 13 on the road in the SEC. I just think that's something that you could really take a positive, so many positives from. And, you know, you kind of look ahead, and, you know, what really stinks for this team is, you know, we heard in the post game, Tyreek Chappelle out for the year with a lower body injury per Mike Elko. And that's a huge loss. You saw it today, the drop off at nickel between him and Jaden Hill. It was big. It was big. And, you know, you already lost your starting center in Mark Naboo. And then today, your backup center, Coley Fayu, goes down with an injury. Don't know yet about his status, but, you know, you're starting to look and you say, okay, the center's out, the backup center might be out, the starting running back, or, you know, one of the top running backs in Ruben Owens is out, Tyreek Chappelle got hurt, and Connor Wigman as well got hurt. And you're just looking at it, you're like, man, this team, you know, is losing some really key guys here, and it's only, you know, 3 games into the season. So Bowling Green coming up, going to be critical for this team to kind of get healthy and get right before conference play really begins to pick up. A few other things. I just keep thinking back to that Notre Dame game. A&M wins that game, and they're 3-0 and what, top 15 in the country right now, and no one's kind of questioning, you know, where they're at right now. They'd be in full control and everything in front of them. 2-1, it's a little bit different. You know, I don't know if they'll be ranked come Monday. They probably should be, but I don't know if they will be. But man, what a wasted opportunity. They just keep going back. And you know, you hear about Connor Wigman suffering the AC joint injury in that early on in that game. I think it happened in the first half from what we've heard. And you wonder the what if game. If he didn't get hurt, or if Marcel Reed just began the season as a starter, is Texas A&M 3-0 right now. And you know, all it takes is to go 10-2 and you're in the playoff if you're an SEC team. So, you know, you kind of get caught up with that a little bit. You also look around at what's happening in the country today, and, you know, LSU's not looking great. Arkansas struggling with UAB. You know, Missouri looks good, but not unbeatable. And, you know, all of these really challenging games for Texas A&M, they're not just totally out of the question for them to win. I think going into the year, A&M was favored in all but one game, which was the Texas game. Whether they'll be favored in most of the rest of their games, I mean, they should be favored in all but maybe one or two of the remaining games. But you just keep looking at that and you say, man, if they win that Notre Dame game, how different is the vibe right now? But I don't want to dwell on that too much, because at the end of the day, huge win for this team, breaking that 10-game road losing streak, and maybe finding something. You know, you could argue this is a new season for this team now, because now that they've found something that they haven't had during that 10-game losing streak, and that's number one, a great quarterback, and two, an offensive line, and you know, a team that has guts to win games like this. So, you know, you could look at a few things and say, hey, this team could kind of have that new belief to where this could end up being kind of a new season if Marcel Reed continues his play. Up next is a Bowling Green team that, you know, is a pretty good team. I mean, they won 6 of their last 7 games last year. They took Penn State down to the wire a couple weeks ago, and, you know, it's probably going to be a team that's, you know, winning 8, 9, 10 games this year. So not an easy opponent, but you get through that, and then, hey, all of a sudden you're 3-1 going into that game against Arkansas, and things could start to get really interesting for this team. So that's about it from me. I'm kind of rambling at this point, but the Swamp, gotta say, man, really cool environment. Loved listening to I Won't Back Down by Tom Petty right before the 4th quarter, where everyone was belting it out. You know, this was a game where really felt like both teams had to win. For, you know, Florida, obviously, Billy Napier being on the hot seat. This is a game where you look at the rest of the schedule, and if they don't win this game, man, you could be looking at a 4-8 season. And then for Texas A&M, it's a game where, hey, you fired Jimbo Fisher last year. You want to prove that that was the right decision, and that this, you know, could be the sort of the game where you say, hey, broke the road streak, and can prove that, hey, it's kind of a dawn of a new era. But if you lost this game, oh my gosh, 11 games now, and you're, you know, looking at 1-2 start with a handful of more important games coming up. So they avoided that. They're 2-1 now. You look ahead, you say, hey, they could start 4-1, 5-1 going into the Missouri game. And so this is just a huge win for this program. And with how Marcel Reed played, could be a new season. So kind of talking in circles. There's a lot of noise and ruckus going on around me. So I'm going to end it here. But thanks, guys, for tuning in, and looking forward to next time.